All right, it is 7:05 on the 26th of September.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I'm gonna call this select board meeting to order. And a reminder to everybody, this meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. That's basically the conclusion of the meeting.
Yes.
All right, call to order. Is there any public comment?
Want me to start?
Sure.
My name is Chester Horn. I'm here to talk about the First Baptist Church here in Georgetown, which belongs to the town of Georgetown. The church is the responsibility of the town, and the town is derelict in its duty. It's not taking care of the church. Almost from the time the town took the church over back in 2000, I want to say 2004, 5.
I believe it was 5, yeah.
Yeah, anyway, when they took it over, the first thing that happened was that the assistant to the board of selectmen, who was in the town office at the time, one of his responsibilities was to check and make sure the heat was on. Which he failed to do. The heat went off in the cold part of the winter. We got wound up with 18 inches of water and ice in the basement. You don't get that much water in the basement if you're watching what's going on. So that was the start of the problem. One time I was on the board to watch out the church, and we fixed the steeple, we fixed the roof, put in a new foundation on the back side of the church, on the west side of the church, with the assistance of Charlie Collins and the contractor. And the next thing that happened was somebody, I know Billy Plummer was involved in it, but they went over there, and because we'd had some water damage, they went in and ripped the whole basement out, including 90%, at least 90% of all the power in that building was ripped out, all the wiring. Ceiling ripped down, the walls were opened up. And apparently was no plan to fix it. No. For basically 2 years, the window in the attic on the north end has been open and propped open, winter and summer. Well, when it rains or snows, the rain goes into the building. And apparently the objective of doing that was to help remove humidity from the building, which, I don't know, that's pretty much a losing battle when you try to get rid of humidity and you let the rain and the snow come in. And the town has been well aware of the fact that that window is propped open and nobody's gone to close it. So I am just a little bit perturbed that the town has obviously no plans for the building. So if they can't fix it or refuse to fix it, then they need to decide what they're gonna do with the building. That's why I'm here.
Okay. I know it's complicated, I guess, for lack of a better term, but thank you for voicing your concern over it. Is there any other public comment?
Yes.
Please.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay to go?
Yes.
I'm here tonight because I had the opportunity to listen to the last select board meeting, and I understand that the town of Minot, probably not unlike a lot of towns, is facing a situation where they are undervalued according to the state guidelines. And at your last meeting, you discussed the possibility of taxing solar panels and taxing generators as one possibility of increasing the valuation of the town. That's correct. Did I interpret that correctly in listening to that?
We're looking at being able to at least track that and considering that as part of it. the end of that will help close down the difference between our evaluation and what the things are actually selling at. That's our issue right now. We haven't said we haven't actually done any votes or anything to say we are gonna tax, but that's one of the things we have been considering, at least getting some of the numbers and just knowing what's out there at this point.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. That's what I thought you were discussing. So I'm here tonight to speak in opposition of those two things. Number one, I think that individuals who lay out the money to install solar panels in their houses or on their houses are doing a good thing. And I know that there was discussion that the state offers a rebate or offers money, and I wasn't clear on who gets the money back from the state regarding solar panels and taxation of those. But I do know, as a member of the planning board, that we are regularly getting individuals now coming to us with requests for permits to put solar panels on their buildings. I suspect that we as a town are not alone in that. And knowing how the state typically operates, what's here today is gone tomorrow. So while they are now offering some type of a rebate or subsidy or tax refund, whatever the correct phrase is, for solar panels, should people be taxed on those, I suspect that somewhere in the future, those monies will disappear. And those individuals who have done what I think is an environmentally friendly thing will be paying the tax burden should our town decide to tax solar panels. The reason I'm in opposition of the generators is that in my mind, generators in the town of Georgetown is not a luxury. It's a necessity. For those of us who have lived there for any amount of time, we know that when there's a breeze, we lose power sometimes for days on end. We talk regularly about being an age-friendly community, and elderly people, in my mind, need a generator in this town. It's a safety issue. It's the difference between being able to stay in your home and not stay in your home when you're elderly. I know there are people right now who are elderly who are trying to determine if they can lay out the money for a generator so that they can stay in their homes. And if we choose to tax those people, it will make it even more difficult for them to do that. So I am in opposition of taxing those two things. I think we need to find a better way or a more equitable way of taxing in order to increase our valuation. So I wanted to say that, and thank you for listening. The other thing that I wanted to speak about quickly was the Airbnb situation, which I know you also addressed at the last meeting, and I've heard many times. I do agree that we as a town need a policy to address Airbnbs. I don't think that we're in any jeopardy that our town is going to become the Airbnb capital of Maine in the next year. I think that we have time to very carefully consider how we put together a policy. I think that we need to gather data. I am really tired of hearing that the Airbnbs create such a burden on our town transfer station. I'd be willing to bet money that the increase in traffic at the transfer station is the result of seasonal people and their relatives and their guests, and far less so the result of Airbnb traffic. I have rented Airbnbs many times. I have never once taken my trash to a transfer station as an Airbnb renter. I'm willing to gather information and data about the transfer station increase in use next summer. I would be happy to survey folks as they enter that. I am willing to volunteer my time. And should you decide to put together a committee, I would be happy to serve on that committee. I do think we need a policy, as I said earlier, but I think we should be careful in crafting that policy. We tend to vilify Airbnbs, but they serve a purpose to this town. They give those people that own those buildings an income stream, and those people that come here spend their money in our town. They go
No,
to
they don't.
Grey Havens, they go to the Osprey, they go to Five Islands, they spend money in our town. They generate revenue for this town. I think we need to think about the good things as well as the burden. Trust me, when it's fall, nobody's happier to see the traffic dissipate in this town than I am. But I do think we need to be very careful about how we put together a policy. And I'd like to volunteer my time if you in fact decide to put together a committee. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other comments? All right, since not, I guess, are there any items to be added to the agenda?
No, I think we're good.
Yeah, I don't have anything either.
Nor do I.
So I think, is that up to you now?
All right, and we do not have any scheduled appointments tonight. So the first item of business would be approval of the minutes of the September 12th meeting.
Move to approve.
I'll second it.
All right, any discussion? Seeing none,
I'm in favor.
all those in favor? And that is unanimous, 2-0. All right, and under assessing items, I just want to let the town know that Pat Dow is still in town working on some of the pre-commitment pickup work. Though I do want to note that most of the field work that Pat's undertaking is now complete. And he will be in the office as early as tomorrow to start working on putting some of that into the computers. We have another item under assessing, an application for a veteran's exemption received from Rich Donaldson. It is in compliance and meets the requirements. And so
And
I
these
would-
have to be renewed every year, is that correct?
No,
No?
one-time application.
Oh, I'm just surprised he hasn't previously applied. Move to accept.
I'll second it.
All right, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Favor.
And it is 2-0. We have another assessing item. There is a recertification of the tree growth recertification for Red Gables LLC, owned by the Carlisles, lot 7R21 and 28. There were no changes to their plan, and this is ready for a vote if there is a motion.
Motion to recertify the Red Gables tree growth application.
Second.
All right.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I have none.
All right, all those in favor? And that is unanimous. We will, let me catch up on my end. We're now on to correspondence. There were notices put out letting folks know that the Fall Frolic and Art Show have been rescheduled to September 30th. If you haven't gotten a ticket yet, I encourage you to stop into town office, the transfer station, and get one. It promises to be a great event. We also had, as correspondence coming in, the RMS Express, which if anyone wants to read, there is some good handy information about risk management for municipalities. And that came from MMA. They do those monthly. We also had a series of email bulletins from Maine Municipal Association regarding their municipal fiscal survey and the tax restabilization process. Mary and I have begun some of the work that we need to do to complete the fiscal survey, and that'll be completed prior to their deadline at the end of October. Additionally, Amanda from MMA, formerly of Georgetown, shared an update about the process for reimbursement to the tax stabilization program. And I have that here. Effectively, we have to get things in by November 1st or 30 days after commitment. So we are still well away from that point, but we are keeping track of the data. And one other item that is of correspondence, household hazardous waste collection day is going to be on October 14th at the Brunswick Public Works. We today managed to get the link onto our town website. You need to reserve a spot. So there are 272 openings between a series of towns. I encourage you to go to the town website if you've got hazardous waste. We had an additional item of other correspondence, and I put this in a separate category because we were not the primary recipients of the correspondence. We just received it as a courtesy from the Sheepscot Island Company, and it was an email to Representative Hepler and Senator Vitelli. And I will be speaking to that a little bit later in one of the proposals that we have.
Okay.
With that, we're on to continuing items, and there's nothing to report as of now. So I know I've gone very quick. Were there any questions on those items, or can I jump into the town administrator report?
No questions from me.
No, you can go ahead.
Perfect. So I wanted to let the board know that we have determined that Jack Schneider will be the next recipient of the Boston Post cane. And we will be working with John and the Schneider family to set up a time to work on a presentation to be able to carry on that piece of family history. And just as an aside, John, I found it pretty cool looking that your father, Mr. Collins, once was able to present the cane, and now you get to take on that part of the family business. I also wanted to note, and I think this may be something Bronwyn touches on a little bit later, that we've been working with the Climate Resiliency Group, and we've actually reached a point where we were able to sign a proposal for our energy audit with Sparhawk, and a site visit will be coming. I've also been working on the tentative calendar that we discussed at the workshop, and I hope to be able to share soon a working document with folks. That way we have the information well ahead of our December deadline to start working on letters. So that is progressing. The last thing are a couple of MMA touch points. Tomorrow, Mary and I will be going around town with John Waterbury from MMA's Insurance to complete our visits of town properties, which they do every couple of years. And Marcus Ballou from a different portion of MMA's Insurance will be visiting us Thursday morning to go over town insurance policy. And next week, if we did not get enough of MMA, Mary, Rich, and I will be headed to the convention for 2 days. And with that, if there aren't any questions, I would turn this over to Mary for the finance director update.
Anybody?
No
Questions for him?
Sounds good.
Okay. Mine is a very brief update. As you know, last week, the auditors were here doing the books for last year. They were here on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then they headed out, and we've had a couple correspondence back and forth. Other than that, nothing. Then also our auditors are also going to be doing our capital assets. And of course, they did it for the first time this year, so I've reviewed all of that to make sure that that was up to snuff based on what Purdy had. And that has all been completed and sent back to them. Based on our workshop last week, we're gonna start working at updating some policies, reserve fund definitions, things like that. And then finally, I think probably under new business is gonna be a request from me to begin shopping for a tax anticipation note. Since the county tax is due and payable actually on October 1, but we hold off the 30 days that they give you grace without interest. So we'll be hand carrying that check to Saginaw County on October 31. As you know, it's over $1 million this year. We will need a TAN. And unless we can get the tax bills out within the next 20 days, we're gonna need a TAN.
Okay.
So I think in correspondence or in.
Yep.
It's
new
under new business.
Yep.
Tyler's gonna be letting you know that I'm asking for approval for that. So other than that, I don't really have anything more to report. Things are going as planned, I think.
Thank you, Mary. Any questions for Mary? Seeing none, we'll move on to committee updates. We had not been in receipt of any new minutes. We are not in receipt of anyone new looking to be added on as members. And so I would turn over to John and Bronwyn for the liaison updates.
I haven't had any meetings between last one and now, so I don't have anything.
All the meetings were the first week of the month.
Right.
They meet on the second Monday and the second Thursday, and we meet the second Tuesday. So the second week of every month is a big month. And you're right, John, we haven't had any meetings since our last meeting, so.
Very good. And so we now move into board member updates. And I believe go ahead.
No, go
Bronwyn.
ahead. I was just going to say that's where you said I would maybe say something more about the climate resiliency. We're quite excited that thanks to Tyler, we've identified a competent vendor who is willing to undertake energy audits and analysis for the school, the town office, the fire station, and the community center. We have had to write the church out of that process because it's not, strictly speaking, an energy efficiency audit, since there are no systems in place in the church. We were hoping we might be able to get some expert advice about what kinds of systems would make the most sense to put in. But probably very realistically, the vendor said that just was a separate issue and wasn't feasible to address in this system, in this segment of operation. At the same time, we're moving forward with plans to communicate with everybody in the community about what's happening with that grant, and also to provide some opportunity for weatherization, preparing for winter. And the Conservation Commission has a potluck coming up sometime in November, I believe, at the community center, where getting ready for winter will be the theme of that event. And they'll have a program or displays to offer assistance in that, getting your house warm. And I think that's probably it. The, in reference to what Lisa was talking about earlier, the Solid Waste Committee is looking into acquiring a traffic counter that would be able to document cars coming into the transfer station. And they got as far as determining that the DOT lends them out. So we'll see if at the next meeting there's any more information about how long and whether we can get one. And I think that's it for me.
Thank you, Bronwyn. And did that cover your board member updates as well?
Yeah, there weren't any. Well,
Perfect.
yes, that was the board member update.
Because I know you had an update as well, John, under board member updates.
I'm gonna be gone on October 10th, and we never quite figured out whether we were gonna cancel that meeting, move it, reschedule it, or what the plan was on that one. Is that, how much, does it look like it's gonna be a busy thing, or can we just hold off and have one meeting in October? What does that look like to you guys?
I know that we were talking in the office about a couple of different options. It doesn't really make sense to hold a meeting next week, which would be the
Right.
first Tuesday. The second Tuesday, you'll be gone. The third Tuesday is going to be an event at the Historical Society, and
Mhm.
we've rescheduled in the past and cut into their audience, so that might not be ideal. What Mary and I were talking about is seeing where we make it on tax commitment process.
Mhm.
And we may call a special meeting with notice and so on, with the items solely to tackle that. And then most of the other ordinary business could be tackled at the second
Second meeting.
meeting that you'll be home for.
Right,
But those were just some initial conversations, and really.
No,
wanted
that
to see
makes
what you-
sense. That makes sense, Tyler. I was just going to say that the big issue in October is the commitment in getting numbers from the assessor and numbers from Mary as to what that translates into. And it makes sense to more or less hold that the meeting when John won't be here, have it in abeyance for that special time when there's too much to do. So I think what that means is that we cancel the meeting on the 10th with the idea that if we need additional time in October, we'll schedule a second meeting.
sounds good to me.
You need a
All right.
motion?
Do
You
we-
want a motion to do that?
A motion would be helpful, though I don't think it's necessary, but
Well,
absolutely.
rewrite what I said into a motion and I move it.
All
I'll
right.
second it.
And all in favor, it is unanimous. Perfect. Bronwyn move, John second, 2 and up. All right, did you have any other board member updates?
No, not that I can think of.
All right, so that would get us into old business. And the first item that we had was a memo from me regarding fee schedules. And just as a little bit of background, ideally, I had tried to present this at the last meeting during my board member update, but really looking for direction from the board, it probably made more sense to come in under old business. We've been discussing it. Right now, I've reached out to the Maine Town and City Managers Association to see what other towns do in regards to fee schedules. Everybody comes back and says the path we're on is the right path, have the select board have the authority. But there is some divergence of thought on the best way to give the select board that authority. Really paraphrasing, there was an option 1, which was update each ordinance to give the select board the authority to set the fees. To me, when you have that spot in the shellfish ordinance, there'd be a fee set by the select board on their annual fee schedule, or whatever the language is, and it would be uniform through our ordinances. A lot of towns operate under this model, particularly some in the region like Wiscasset. There was another option where we could develop a specific ordinance that gave the board authority to set fees and then do everything we were going to do in the first option anyway, because that language still needs to go in.
Mhm.
There was a third option where I'd say do nothing, but really that was just there to show you those are really the two paths we have. I did talk with Rich a little bit today, and he felt that there is a possibility that we could amend all of the ordinances and pass a new ordinance in one article at town meeting. And that was really in response to, I just wanted the board to be thinking as we embark on this process, that there is a chance that we have several of the ordinances changed to go on this path, but if we had one that didn't, for whatever reason, whether it was the TOPMB, the Shellfish Committee, the Harbor Committee, the like on their ordinance, decided to resist that change and got an affirmative vote at town meeting to resist it. If we had an overarching ordinance and then other ordinances that didn't mirror the principle of that, we could have some conflict. Rich thinks that there is a way that we could word the warrant article, though, where we wouldn't run into that. So really what I was looking for tonight was, does the board feel like as we work on drafting, want an overarching ordinance that'd be pretty simple to give the authority and then still do all the changes? Or do we want to follow the lead of Wiscasset potentially and update all of the ordinances, and adding that other one could be a little bit redundant? Does that kind of make sense?
It's confusing, Tyler. I was thinking that one advantage or one possible reason for having an overarching ordinance would be that that ordinance would say that all fees in the town of Georgetown are set by the planning board. So that if there came about another committee, another ordinance, as the cannabis ordinance is newer than all the others, that included fees, it wouldn't be up for grabs written into that ordinance who set the fees. It would have been established that the fee schedule for the town of Georgetown for all committees is set by the select board. Kind of on the other side of that, I think that when we first talked about this, I had assumed that this schedule of fees would be reviewed annually by the select board. It seems to me that that wasn't necessarily the idea that staff had. And another consideration is the nature of the fees. Would the individual ordinances still have to specify what was being charged? Not the amount, but that there's a commercial user fee at the wharf, and this is who qualifies. That ordinance would set the terms. But then if the TOPMB suddenly decided that they'd like to have an additional fee to use the hoist, for instance, specifically, and say you had to get a certain card to unlock it, would the simple sentence in the TOPMB ordinance also establish that that new fee was going to be set by the select board? And would it imply that the select board had some say in whether or not there should be such a fee? Which is a more important thing with the TOPMB, where that's an elected board with a certain mission, than a committee like the Harbor Committee. What do you think about any of that stuff?
I think that, to me, we would want to annually, whichever direction we go, set the fees. We'd want to have an annual fee schedule in July. At the first, or, you know, the first board meeting of a new board, you'd want to set your fees, do those kind of housekeeping pieces. I think that in the ordinance for, let's say, the TOPMB, we'd want to, if there's going to be a fee for the commercial user fee, you'd want to have language that accompanied that said this is set by the select board. The same with if they decided they wanted to go that route on the hoist. I think you do lead to, I think it leads to some area that requires some good thought where you have an elected board that has, you know, a little bit of a different standing, I'd say, than an appointed board, if that kind of makes sense. But
It makes sense. It's always made sense to the people who were elected to the TOPMB. If you get my
Yeah.
gist. And would we want if we had an overarching ordinance, would we want to say that the fees are set by the select board with input or feedback from the various committees or not? Are we just unilaterally wanting to set these, or do we want to know what the planning board thinks the building permit fee should be?
I would think the committees or whatever would have say in it. I mean, I would expect them to have something to say for sure.
From my perspective, I think you'd obviously want to have the folks that are the experts in certain areas be able to offer their feedback. I do think that if you're looking at language, you know, upon feedback or a recommendation from, you know, there's a way you could word it, but if the goal is ultimately to have the select board make the decision, you know, I don't want to have the planning board go down 2 months worth of work on a rabbit hole and then have the select board completely disregard it, though I don't think the select board would. So I think you're raising some good questions, Bronwyn. And perhaps what might make sense is me to put some pen to paper and at least get an idea of what that overarching ordinance could look like. That way we have it fleshed out in front of us.
And
you
also,
know,
have we asked legal for an opinion about which approach is preferable?
I have not asked legal for an opinion, but I definitely can. I was just going with the town managers at this point, but we can definitely reach out to Kristen.
Well, we could ask MMA legal first, since that's free.
true.
I
Absolutely, that's a better idea.
Yeah.
So I think the action item here would be to talk with MMA legal, and there's still some more work to be done.
think, however, whatever we do, each ordinance would have to have a sentence in it that changed, right?
Yes, and
Whether we do one, so we should get cracking on that. As in, we need to send a memo to the various committees that this is what we're proposing as a means of more effectively keeping fees consistent with costs, and as a budgeting issue too, in which regard that although the fee schedule might be confirmed at the first meeting after town meeting, it probably should be part of the budget process.
Well, I know for sure the Shellfish Committee, DMR has already pointed out in their ordinance that the fees shouldn't be in their ordinance. It should be under the under the select board purview. That was what the DMR person said. So they already know for one, so I'm sure we look at some of this other stuff, MMA will probably give us some other, examples or other things that we may not know about when it comes to that. So obviously there is some more research to be done here. So I don't know whether we can
I think we
pick one choice or just say, go look some more.
I think I've got good marching orders. So this is the kind of feedback that helps me though. So I at least know the direction to head on. And I think absolutely MMA legal is someone that we should be definitely coordinating with on that. So.
Good, okay. So, but the big direction is this year we want to get the change up for a vote at town meeting
Yes.
in some form.
Correct. Perfect. And if there isn't anything else to add on that item, there was the second item of old business was a memo from me regarding agenda item submission. And this was also an item that we discussed a little bit at the last meeting. And I took in some of the feedback from board members, and to that end, I updated my recommendations to 12 p.m. versus 2 p.m. on Thursdays for select board and town staff. You know, in a phone conversation with Rich today, he had some thoughts on this. And he seemed to have an idea that on Thursday, we could consider the agenda after John and I put it together, the final agenda, and we could post it right then versus waiting for things to come in over the weekend, because we do have a spot on the agenda where we can add in new things if they're pressing. But
You mean-
ideally,
Do you mean post it on the website?
or,
When you
you
say
know,
post it?
post it here at town office, post it at the places we typically would get the agenda out. I
Okay,
don't think that the agenda historically has gone up on the website.
Nope, I don't think so, no.
But though that's something that now that we have time, we could actually strive for, because it wouldn't be a scrambling on
Mhm.
a
well, also
Monday,
now that we have remote meetings or public participation remotely, it makes sense to be able to get that information online and not necessarily coming into the town office. That's all I was thinking. But yes, I just wasn't sure what you meant by post.
Oh,
Yeah, there's no reason why you
But-
can't send it to Chris at the same time.
But in terms of these kind of recommendations, I was hoping to get a vote from the select board at least to tentatively have those as good guidelines. That way, if I have a community member reach out Thursday at 3 p.m., I can point back and say, well, there is a process on how to get this considered, et cetera. And we could take it as a whole, or we could just take it as this is what Tyler's working towards, but I wanted to at least have us get a chance to actually talk about it a little bit, because outside of Bronwyn's
Well,
comments,
Tyler, so I'm sorry, go ahead.
outside of your comments at the last meeting, we kind of went into talking about a workshop instead.
Mhm.
And that's why I just wanted to make sure we came back to this.
My personal feeling is that, first of all, your effort to shut down the agenda by noon on Thursday so that you have a chance to go over it with John before it's circulated to the board is excellent, and you should stick with it. And as Rich points out, there is a place on the permanent agenda to add for board members to propose the addition of other items. But I think it's really important that we honor the commitment to provide background information on anything where we want a serious discussion or especially a vote. Prior to that, here's the meeting, let's add this topic. You know, that's a very last minute approach and should only be in the event of some happening over the weekend. So this proposal kind of divides itself into submissions and then the sending out the whole issue of a draft agenda. But I think the timeline that you offer, I'd be happy to move to establish that as our guidelines. Thursday at noon for board members to suggest items for the agenda, and Wednesday at noon for community members to make a request to add an item to the agenda. And
And town
understanding
staff,
the town staff, yeah, well, I'm sorry, board members and town staff. Yeah, that's noon on Thursday, right?
yes,
Okay. I like that.
and that was a motion,
I'll second it.
Yes, that's a motion.
seconded by John. Any comments to that motion?
No, I like the way that, it seems pretty straightforward and
All right, all those in favor? And it is 2-0. Thank you, guys.
And one further thing, I don't have any problem with sending out posting that agenda that's, once you and John have gone over it and determined that we have the information we need to consider those items and that there's time for all of them on that agenda, because you can decide that something should be postponed to the next meeting or have a workshop instead. So I'm fine with eliminating the concept of a draft, if you will. Isn't that what it amounts to?
Yes.
So you go home on Thursday and you've sent out the agenda and you've sent out all the materials that go with it. And anybody who wants a printed copy of that packet can show up on Monday and get it at the office.
Yes.
Sounds great.
Sounds good. The next item on the agenda was a memo again from me. I promise the next one's not going to be from me, but this one is to schedule a meeting with the Sheepscot Island Company leadership and our local legislators. On September 7th, the town of Georgetown received a letter from Susan Weiss of Sheepscot Island Company. This letter was shared with the full board on Sunday, September 17th. She followed up with her initial message, and on the 20th reached out to local legislators requesting a meeting with them and our local select board. And so I recommend the board tonight designate one board member to attend with me and direct me to work to schedule a meeting with our local legislative delegation and representatives of the Sheepscot Island Company in the meeting room of our town office.
I would like to move that we designate John Collins, our select board chair, to accompany you at this meeting.
Okay, I have to second that.
Absolutely.
Long
Yes,
as
you
it's
do, John.
Second
And then you
it.
have to vote for it, the whole 9 yards.
As long as it's not on the week of the 10th, although that would work for me perfectly.
If you get this moose, how widely are you going to share it in Georgetown?
All right.
So I seconded it and I approve, or I agree.
All right.
All right, and I will be in touch with you so we can work on
Yep.
availability. And so we are done with our old business, and I would turn this over to Mary regarding the tax anticipation note.
Yes. Yes, well, as I told you in my little update, it's time to shop around for a tax anticipation note. I think that I did put in, got that memo right there?
I do.
I did put in the memo that, the town meeting warrant does authorize the treasurer with the consent of the select board to obtain a tax anticipation note. What I'm looking for right now is just approval to look around, for rates and to begin the process of obtaining a TAN. The process actually involves, not just going out to the banks, but also reaching out to our legal counsel. Because the banks will require a legal opinion, that virtually just states that the town is authorized by their town meeting warrant to have a TAN and, you know, it needs to be paid back and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, it's that time of year, so I'm just requesting the okay to, shop around. I normally go to, Bass Savings. Bass Savings is who we have typically gotten our TAN with. And the reason for that is just simple paperwork in our relationship. We have worked in the past with Northeast Bank. Northeast Bank actually came down with a package for Jeff Birdsell and I one year, and we looked at each other and said, we're not doing this, and went with Bass Savings. But anyway, so I'll just reach out to the various ones, looking at interest rates. Last year, I think we got it, but we never even used it, so something, so anyway. It's that time, so I'm just looking for the okay to go ahead and start shopping on the town's behalf.
So moved, my dear.
Thank you.
Second it.
Discussion?
Nope,
All right, all those in favor?
in favor.
And that is
Yep.
unanimous 2-0. So the next two items of new business came out of our workshop. As we're all aware, we cannot formally make decisions at workshops. And so per a discussion at the 9/20 board workshop, I'm seeking approval from the board to begin updating the personnel policies for future board consideration. I don't know if this is a necessary step. I wasn't 100% sure how Georgetown's past practice had been. But really, I was just looking for the go-ahead that we can tackle the personnel policies as we discussed, And then in the next item, the financial controls policies, because there was a lot of good feedback in that hour and a half we spent together. And I know Mary's already got some good ideas she's working on the personnel front.
Does that take two motions or just one motion to?
We should probably do each one, and
Okay.
that's how they're on the agenda. So in regards to personnel policies.
Well, we
Make-
definitely need to update the personnel policies.
Yes.
So I move that we ask you to do that and bring us back a draft.
All right, that's that second.
Second it, yep.
All those in favor? 3-0. And the same thing per the discussion at the 920 board workshop, I'm seeking approval from the board to begin updating the financial controls policies for future board consideration.
And that was mostly to do with the use of reserve funds. Is
Yeah.
that correct, Mary?
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, because we had the basic outlines were there, but I don't think we had ever,
Right, emergency versus planned
Right.
usage, things like that. We just want to put that in right
okay,
with the definition.
and
I
then make
showed,
sure we have those policies now.
Right.
So, okay, yeah,
yeah, we have, every year we make the FAC go, well, the FAC goes over those definitions and stuff. And we just want to make sure that, I'd like to have it all on one sheet.
Mhm.
This is how we utilize this fund, and this is how,
perfect.
In addition to that, we talked about the whole issue of a bid process.
right, yeah, yeah,
So we
And-
need feedback on that too.
yep,
And I can just report very quickly, I have reached out to the association I'm a member of. And I've heard from various corners of Maine and various sizes of communities at what point on the dollar amount they have require either an oral bid over the phone in some cases, to a written bid via email, to a formal RFP. So I am by no means through synthesizing all of those. That information gets a little dense at a certain point, but we're
Mhm.
working on gathering that too.
Oh, the one other thing,
Excellent.
is there a procedure or a policy for getting rid when something's outdated, getting rid of town property? i.e. one of the,
Property disposition type
Yeah.
stuff.
when something gets obsoleted and
yeah.
needs to be getting rid of. I don't think we mentioned
We
that.
really don't, if you have it, I mean, there's a, excuse me, warrant article that authorizes the select board to get rid of things like undervalued, under $2,000, something like that.
But something above that should be probably notified, because it's,
Right.
so we.
Well,
that's
yeah, we're
something
talking
that-
about, because we've got the squad that we're,
Correct,
Brian's,
correct.
looking at, sending it out to his Fire Chiefs Association. Is anybody looking, could you
Mm.
maybe utilize this truck? Same thing with the engine too. So yes,
Okay.
we can certainly
As long
add
as we-
something
As
to
long as
that,
we at
for
least
sure,
look at it.
for sure.
That was the only thing I had to add to that thing.
Yep, that's good. Thank you.
And I'm remembering now that one of the things under personnel was to spell out the procedure required for criticizing or for criticizing an employee's actions or performance. That we don't really have, there's a process for that that's legal, and there are various ways it may happen that are not legal, and we need to put it in writing.
Dealing with complaints.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or just
Okay.
dissatisfaction.
Yep, absolutely.
So in terms of financial controls, was there a motion on that?
I don't know if there was. I did not.
No,
make
there,
one yet.
I didn't make one. I got into discussion or conversation. So the motion would be to ask the finance director to update our financial controls policies and bring them back for review.
Second it.
All right, all those in favor? And it is 2-0. All right, and I believe there will be some items for signature after the meeting. We only need one assessor on each. So John, that'll be tasked with you because you're
Okay.
here. And then I believe I turn this back over to you for public comment.
Is there any more public comment?
And if not, you have a cheat sheet for the next.
Well, Aria has her
Oh,
hand up,
sorry,
or is
Aria,
waving at us.
I didn't see you.
Oh,
Aria.
no worries. Thank you. John, you may have already reminded folks about the Fall Frolic and the art show this weekend.
I forgot.
It's running from 10 to 2, and tickets are available at the town office, at the transfer station, and folks with age-friendly. I'm also leaving some at the school, and any of us rec volunteers or some of the age-friendly folks. So we've got them on us, and we hope to see everybody there. The weather actually looks like it's no
It looks like the
hurricanes in
sun will
sight.
shine.
So we're great. It's also coastal cleanup, so we hate to compete with another town event. But hopefully folks can engage in both of the activities. The conservation luncheon that you mentioned, Bronwyn, I put that in the chat. That's November 4th at GCC, just like you said. So hope to see everyone in the next couple of months. Thank you.
Thanks. Is that just your mouse?
Yes.
Okay. If you guys are all set, I guess that's everything for public comment. So now, we'll do ends the public portion of the meeting, and we're gonna do, pursuant to one of, MRSA section 5046A. I move we enter executive session to discuss a personnel matter. So we'll wait till.
Second.
Second, and then all those in favor?
I'm in favor.
Perfect. And we'll clear folks out. Thank you for attending,
Thank you.
folks.
And now, as that we're out of executive session, I think we should take the action that we spoke about during executive session, or take some action on what we spoke about during executive session.
And I would think that action would be to create a positive statement about our expectations for board members' actions at public meetings.
Sounds good.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
In favor.
All right.
Hey,
and
John,
the-
it's a good thing we didn't disagree about anything.
And now you guys have to make a motion to adjourn.
And motion to adjourn,
Second.
well, at 8:22.